We're joined today by Dr. Jim Drackley. Dr. Drackley, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here. I'm a professor of animal sciences at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. My responsibilities are research in the area of dairy cattle nutrition and metabolism, and also teaching. I've been at the university more than 30 years and still active in research and teaching there.
Very good. And what are we discussing today?
I've been asked to speak about a recent research paper that we published in the Journal of Dairy Science Communications. And the title of the article is Feeding Native Rumen Microbial Supplements Increases Energy-Corrected Milk Production and Feed Efficiency by Holstein Cows.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, yes, it's a mouthful.
What were the main findings from your study?
So the addition of these rumen microbial supplements to the diet of dairy cows increased milk production, energy-corrected milk production, and also improved feed efficiency by cows.
What were the microbes that were used?
Well, there were two different supplements that we looked at, and speaking of mouthfuls, these are some pretty good names here. The two species in the first supplement were Pichia kudryavzeli, which is a yeast, and Clostridium birnecki, which is a bacterium. The second supplement that we looked at had those two organisms with the addition of butyrvibrio fibrosolvens and Ruminococcus bovis, two species that are native to the rumen. All these species are actually native to the rumen and were isolated from the rumen of high-producing cows.
How were the products added to the ration?
So we added these products as a top dress every day, mixed with some ground corn as a carrier. So my graduate student, Ashley Dickerson, who is the senior author on the paper, the first author on the paper, and her assistants actually mixed and added the premix containing the microbial supplements every day. So very, very labor-intensive research trial.
Why is this probiotic different than others on the market?
It's different because these species are native to the rumen. Many of the probiotic species are not necessarily major inhabitants of the rumen. So these species were actually isolated by the Native Microbials research folks. So they are different because they're native to the rumen, and they're just being added in a dose to strengthen their abundance within the rumen microbiome.
Tell me about the test. Is it short term? Is it longer?
This was a 20-week test, so it was a longer-term test, which is appropriate for this kind of a product. There's some adaptation time that it takes for the rumen microbiome to adjust, and then running it for a longer period of time like that allows us to see how the organisms are affecting the cow over a longer period of time.
We're talking to Dr. Jim Drackley. Dr. Drackley, when should producers use a product like this?
Well, I think that probably you could say they should use it most any time. The ability of the product to stimulate improved usage of the feed, to improve feed efficiency is something that we're all striving for. And so I think based on the research that we've done, the other research being conducted by the company at several locations suggests that there's benefits under a variety of situations.
Does stage of lactation influence the results?
In our study, the response was the greatest when we added the microbial supplements to the cows that were in earlier lactation. And that makes sense since those cows are still coming up in their dry matter intake and milk production. And probably have the greatest ability to influence the lactation curve by starting earlier in lactation. With that said, we still got a response for cows that were in mid to late lactation as well, though.
How can such a small inclusion of microbes produce these effects?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and in some ways it seems like we're spitting in the ocean here. You're adding a small amount of microbes to a very large pool of microbes in the rumen. But these microbes are able to influence the overall microbiome. The company, in some of their research, has that they just presented at the American Dairy Science Association this summer, showed that there were changes in the microbial structure, microbial community, based on adding these small amounts of microbes. So one of the characteristics to be a good probiotic is that the organisms are able to establish themselves and grow and find a niche within that complicated rumen microbial community that influences how other species are interacting and changes the overall fermentation within the rumen. So it seems hard to believe, but there's a number of examples of this, not just this current research, but the probiotics are able to establish themselves and alter the community.
Was there any effect on milk components?
The milk components trended higher, but that was not statistically significant. So these small improvements in the milk fat and milk protein contributed to that improvement in the energy-corrected milk value, which the milk production was also non-significantly increased. But when we put the components in the milk production together, it led to significant changes in the energy-corrected milk production.
Where does the cow get the energy to produce these effects?
Well, we're assuming, we don't have direct measurements, but we're assuming that the overall digestibility of the diet is enhanced by this, by the microbial supplements. So improving digestibility means we're getting more, unlocking more of the energy that's within the different feedstuffs in the diet.
What was the diet made of, and does the product work in all diet types?
Our diet was a fairly typical Midwestern type of diet. It's based on corn silage, alfalfa silage, ground corn, canola meal, corn gluten feed, and soybean meal, along with minerals and vitamins. The company has tested this product in several locations across the U.S., in California, Florida, Michigan, New York, and so the diets are quite different among all those locations. And the responses in general seem to be consistent, not necessarily the same variables being significant in all cases, but it seems to have promise in diets of quite widely different composition.
Excellent. We're talking to Dr. Jim Drackley. Dr. Drackley, anything else you want to add?
Well, I think this is an example of a pretty exciting technology. Probiotics, probably 30 years ago or so, when I first started my career, were still viewed somewhat skeptically as maybe as foo-foo dust or something like that. But the science has really progressed over that time period, both in humans and animals. And there's very clear mechanistic data now that explain how these compounds can impact animals and humans. And I think this Native Microbials probiotic or probiotics is particularly exciting because of isolating the organisms from the rumens of healthy, high-producing cows, so that we know that those organisms are adapted to the rumen and may be contributing to a very highly efficient fermentation in these high-producing cows. So I would look for more products of this type to be developed as the technology continues to improve and advance. So I think it's a pretty exciting idea.
I agree. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Drackley, is there a way people can get a hold of you to find out more about this?
Yeah, certainly. My email address is Drackley, Drackley, at illinois.edu. I'd be glad to answer the questions people have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. You have a good day.
All right. Thank you.